this last segment. There we go. That's the word. That's the void that I wanted to use. I'll come back over to here as we have our Goth Goblin. If any of you are just joining, in the series of mascots that are getting the Gothic treatment by one of the main artists of the channel here, Dan the Art Man, the next mascot in line that is getting a variety of goth attire is our prize goblin. And so we have kind of a baby doll look, like goth Lolita fashion. I hope that you appreciate it. This is, I think there's only two more. We have two more mascots that need to be rendered. That's going to be our Drider and our, let's see, Drider and our Barmaid. So our Barmaid is a mall goth, and our Drider is, I forget how Heretic Trance explained it, kind of a classical goth, very kind of a whimsical, like dressed in dark but fancy clothing, walking among headstones in a cemetery. So very classical, not like the dark broody, like, urban goth fashion, very kind of like Victorian 1800s, I'm haunted kind of a look. And then our Barmaid, the proprietress of the Tumbled Wench, is in mall goth attire, which is its own distinct version of it. Yeah, trad goth. There we go. So all of you out there, you can have not just a goth GF, but there is hope if you want to take that relationship from goth GF to trad wife, and you can still have the best of both those worlds. Badaspot, I'm glad that you like the look. I hope your own artistic pursuits are going well. Bat, let me give you a quick shout out here as a fellow streamer, Bat Espada. Yeah. Yep. I hope that Woden was it, if you finished it, or if not, I hope he does. But I hope he has enjoyed you helping him get his character Kinwin, the elven druid from Coffee Cat's Rebirth, a D&D tale, into one of our Tiamat entries. I don't have the sixth one made yet. I hopefully will by Saturday, and that way, after the sixth one is released, I can give the final countdown, and we'll have about 2 weeks and go from there. And then someone's getting a $400 Tiamat, a pre-painted gargantuan Tiamat. But the Tiamat in quotes is a Tiamat, a miniature. This thing's about the size of a house cat, everyone. All right. Anyway, so we go from our goth goblin GM game master. You know what? She probably would. She would probably host a game for you all. Would you all play under the prize goblin here if she was your goth goblin GM? All right, going back to the books here. We were leaving off in this section of the GM's guide. We went through, I mean, a lot of this is general advice for running. A lot of it is trusting the dice, letting the story play out. It'll probably be rough at times, but how are you gonna do this? Are you gonna get through the encounter? Are you gonna roll with what's out there? Because sometimes life is not fair. I think we left off, let's see, there's tactic dice. That was about the behavior of the enemies in combat. Session setup, encounter setup. Yeah, I think we were around there. Let's go to 134. Yeah, because I was talking about like setting up the encounter. What kind of an encounter do you want to run? And I appreciated when presenting a foe or major threat, use the exaggerated camera moves, speed lines, and close-ups of anime. A towering warrior glares over one shoulder, flower petals fall in slow motion, or a dying knight coughs blood with his final supreme effort. Check out the resources appendix at the end of this book for a few anime suggestions. Bagger says, Maddie, you calling Tiamat a mini is like me saying I like small models. So there's very good advice here for really that's for D&D and all sorts of other things. I've preached from on high. Don't just have a Final Destination no item arena boss battle. Those can be boring, especially if done over and over and over again. And if you only have one a day and you go, wow, my players, I have to throw something that's 10 CR above them to even have to possibly have a fair battle. It's because you're letting them throw everything with the one encounter they have. And there's no other events happening. No shifting light, no traps in the ground during the fight, no run-in mooks, these other things to make things very dynamic and taxing for strategy and resources. I'm glad that addressed it, bringing that up. And it's a core part of facilitating a game of Crown and Skull. All right, players are famously excited for the promise of future awesomeness, power, fame, and effectiveness. They love to dream and drool over the all but inevitable evolution of their beloved characters. Embrace this truth openly and use as many tools as you need to keep them dreaming. Allow your players to bring their favorite RPG books to the table. Consider and adapt their input with care. Not every idea will fit in any given game, but with attention and enthusiasm, everything can at least be considered. Foster an open environment for imagination and research. Entertain ideas, suggest routes. If a player approaches you with a detailed backstory or ambitious character concept, don't shy away. Hear them out, look for cool details, then propose a possible route to these lofty ambitions. Sure, you could rule the flame courts, but first the elementals must be vanquished. No one has succeeded on this errand. Encourage customs. Openly invite players to imagine custom item and skill progression outside what is listed. Look with empathy on their play style and propose paths ahead. Embrace their big dream. Offer a promotion. Promotions! Use royal or beloved NPCs to lift characters up to higher stations in the world, using deeds and renown to promote characters into positions of real power and influence. Remember that with such power comes added gravity, and failures fall squarely in the character's lap. Quality over quantity. The inventory limits in this game are absolute, therefore players should be seeking best-in-class skills and equipment, rather than a huge pile of gear and abilities. Remind them of this with enemy power growth and scarcity of downtime. Start a session with loot. Every once in a while, kick a session off with a decent cache of high-quality gear. It's very exciting for players to play with new toys right away, rather than waiting between sessions to feel a lurch in power. What one property or technique makes a great GM? The answer is often the same: energy. Nothing ruins tabletop gameplay like low energy. Sleepy or humdrum game mastering is no fun for anyone, and players feed on the GM's tone and enthusiasm. Here are a few guideposts. The perfect recap. Set the energy level at your table with an animated recap of the events leading up to the moment. By the way, this is excellent practical advice. Excellent practical advice. I hope that more of you, if you're not already doing this, that you do this. Aha, I said do. Even if it's an introductory session, you can recap the character creation process, provide some just before this context, or simply announce, okay, you guys, let's get into this. Whatever your recap, rev up your order engine and wake everyone up. Every phase, every round, over and over, the energetic GM calls on players by their character name. Why is my mouse is just glitching on this over and over? I continually highlight this one concept for some reason. My hand must clearly be possessed. There's no other reason why I would be continually highlighting this point of calling on your players by their character's name. Lifting them up, lighting the fuse on their next action, reiterating their current situation, plans, and obstacles quickly and directly. Okay, Greythorn, you're up. You've been chipping away at this mud ogre and eyeing that iron gate with some kind of plan. What will you do? Everybody with me? This phrase is very useful for the energetic GM, as roles are devised, on-the-spot rulings delivered, or high-stakes coin flips decided on. Ask the table with eye contact. Everybody with me? This reinforces the shared tension and fun of every dice roll and keeps everything in the open. Operate with a crazy level of transparency. Hammer the stakes. If you miss this roll, there's really no way to survive the next round. All ideas have been heard. You ready to roll it? Constantly reinforce what's at stake with any given action. Revel in the suspense of every dice roll by reiterating its context. Theatrics, keeping your energy high. It's time to break out your terrible voice acting skills, silly hand gestures, and even body language like standing or creeping up behind players. The table is a place for fun and uninhibited nerding. Enjoy it and let the goofy vibes fly. When you are the weirdest person in the room, players will feel far more comfortable letting their own flags fly. Yes, thank you. Oh, my mouse is geeking out again. Oh, I just can't stop highlighting this sentence. Someone help me. When you, as the GM, are the weirdest person in the room, players will feel far more comfortable letting their own flags fly. You are setting a pace, a trend, a comfort, a culture, a set of mores. Dream state is a catch-all term used with GMing to mean an intuitive and holistic sense for things. In the so-called dream state, you know the mood, people, themes, and larger forces of a setting on a deep level. This is essential with Crown and Skull. Here are some elements to think deeply upon, research, or sprinkle into your descriptions and schemes. A time of fallen heights. At every turn in this world, mention of the Bloodwing War 3 decades past reminds players that this is a lawless time, an afterglow of a more prosperous era. Borders are fuzzy, royal lines have been broken, roads go without maintenance. There are more gravestones than flower pots. This violent fall and the struggle to rise again sets the overall tone of the Northhold. The rising tide. The military threatens the Froggish Empire, and the orcs of the far south are growing ever more present in daily life. Krokakame and his legions of frog warriors are not yet fully unleashed, but claim a right to all the Northholds. Imminent, imperialistic to the extreme. The orcs, by contrast, are already on the move, barbarically attacking anything as they skirmish northward. Hints of the Crown with NPCs and other background scenes. In each session, players may notice evidence of the Crown. This means Silverhelm Knights, acts of kindness, courageous messengers, and hopeful diplomats. Order may yet prevail if the mighty choose law over power. The Crown is a bright ray of optimism, a belief in cooperation and ancient codes of honor. Build a habit of saying, "For the crown!" Hints of the skull. Much how the crown sworn are frequently seen, those who follow the path of the skull are also encountered. These are freebooters, pirates, assassins, thieves, saboteurs. The skull isn't an evil path, but one defined by individuality. When a skull ring is seen or a black hooded figure encountered, our heroes should be wary but curious of those who follow the skull. Build a habit of darker themed NPCs smiling, lowering their heads, placing fist to chest, and quietly saying, so there's more here for you to build upon. Background things, you can adapt it if you want to use your own setting. Here's a handful of story prompts for the hometown of Gardenborough. They can be used as story leads, adventure starters, or read-alouds. Things here, save a little bit for, if you're gonna play. Don't. What are you doing reading this? What do you get to stop it? Everyone, what? No, come on. Oh well, heck, that doesn't do it. That's the wrong thing. Right? That's the energy. I have to be the weird one in the room, everyone. So, lots of prompts here to go over. I'm not going to worry about this. This is all, behind the screen stuff. These could be possible encounters and such. So, let's move into the Atlas. Hey, Ketup, Crown and Skull, let's go. He sent me a review copy a week ago. I've been too busy to do a video on it. Ketup, this has been a fun system. The writing has been great. The system is easy to get along and really puts a lot of emphasis on the characters themselves as the stars of the show. I have greatly enjoyed going through this system. Highly recommend it. And if you got a review copy, awesome. As you go through it yourself, I think that we're going to share the same opinion. And if we don't, I'm just going to cancel you. So it's just that easy, right? That's what you do online, right? Five-section turn orders, the whole, gear and skills are your hit points. That attrition system. The way that ultimately everything is about the players. And also just the balance of the back and forth. Excellent. I do greatly enjoy it. So we're in the Atlas section. There is a great amount of fluff in here. It is well written. Ketup, if the little things get to you, there are a couple editorial things there was a sentence that ended in a comma and a period. And if that makes you itch, then you'll find a couple of that. If you look past it, this is really solid. And I really appreciate it. There's a very down-to-earth writing style as well. So, excellent stuff. Yeah, it does have that cutthroat OSR feel. And everyone is on board. I mean, getting into this, you would be aware of that from the start. The writing, I mean, spoilers for when you read through it. This is written, though, not in a, kill your players every session. There are mercies that are invoked in the rules, as well as things to warn you as the GM of, hey, this could get bonkers. So it can get into a death spiral if the game is played like D&D. For sure, if the game is played like D&D, where every battle is stand and deliver, and I'm just going to stand here because 1,000 hit points is the same as 1 hit point in D&D. This does not have that, because you are constantly being chipped at through this attrition system. And so hopefully the name of the system, the mood of it, the fact, especially because the players are deciding how they're losing their hit points, so to speak, quote unquote hit points, by the gear that's destroyed, the skills that become inaccessible for a while. There is a player decided, for the most part, growing sense of dread. Should we really be doing this? Can we actually stand and deliver? Because here, your maximum HP is 20, 10 skills and 10 items. And that it doesn't matter if you're playing a barbarian style character or a wizard style character. If you're playing an elf, an orc, or whatever, right? I've only had time to leaf through it. I've got it on my desk, but life is so nuts right now doing the Void Home promo. Yep. And I hate that's your baby, Ket Up. And I want you to, focus on it. And you know, if you want someone to talk to about this, I'd be happy to be a talking head, a gentle voice, a co-conspirator. If you need one, let me know. But I've greatly enjoyed this session. This session, but this RPG. So do all of you have to play? Do all of you have to play in this area? And you can never stray? Of course not. These are your lands as well. These lands are your lands. These lands are my lands. But you can see there's Rivergate, Slimshire. Then we have, where is the third of our starting cities? Around here somewhere. Anyway. Adventurers get around. They're notoriously nomadic, chasing storylines, or simply seeing what lies beyond the horizon. For the GM, this behavior can pose a creative challenge. What do they find? What happens next? Rather than predict or prescribe the answer, use a hex roll. You'll need a few tools to execute this elder tradition of role-playing. Roll 2d10 when a hex border is crossed. When to call for a hex roll. When heroes cross a hex border, enter a thematically different area, embark on a journey, dare to travel at night, enter hostile country. Oh, by the way, Ket Up, if you're familiar with Darkest Dungeon, this system does give me Darkest Dungeon, in tabletop terms, a West Marches, just as a natural, leaning into a type of a game like it. Obviously, there are traditional storytelling that can be woven through it. The prompts that are given to you would be something like a Darkest Dungeon. We had Santero in chat earlier talking about a Monster Hunter. This could be a very good way for a Monster Hunter style campaign as well, like a story. This leans very easily into that kind of play, using the native setting or one that you want to create yourself. So the player should feel fear and enjoy a hex roll. It opens new opportunities, but offers possible dangers as conditions and scenery change. When not to, don't be too rigid. As a GM, about calling for a hex roll. Sometimes heroes may be in motion, but mid-story, unimpeded by terrain or borders, or simply traveling through continuous thematic areas. The hex roll is a tool to find out what's next, not interrupt what's currently happening. Die 1 is a location, Die 2 an event. Skimming ahead, you'll see that the first 10 items of the hex roll table are zoomed in locations. Use these to set up an encounter, frame a battle, or generate ideas for specific terrain. A hex is a huge area. A rolled location is just a few bow shots across. Higher rolls mean more favorable landscapes. The event die. Now that you've discovered some terrain, what's there? This result can vary widely, including monster encounters, discoveries, friendly characters, and more. Higher rolls mean more favorable events. While this book provides you with plentiful hex roll tables to discover the North holds, you will inevitably be tempted or forced to create your own. Here's the logic used to build these 20-item tables. Get a clear concept in your mind for the area being described and let her rip. Location roll. there's a 1 to 10. Deadly terrain, the area is crumbling, collapsing on fire or worse. 2 to 5, difficult, bad sight lines, cluttered grounds, gaps or chasms. Weaving terrain, good footing, but winding routes. Open terrain, favorable, even surfaces, and easy to see goals. 10, ideal terrain, chef kiss. Exactly what heroes are searching for. Ambush, enemies, environmental event, discovery, lucky day, treasure allies, or wondrous features are revealed. Who rolls it? Most often the players will have a designated navigator or cartographer to make hex rolls. That player will have skills or items that enhance the chances for good outcomes. In more challenging environments or conditions, the GM makes the roll, influencing it for worse outcomes. The orcs have been pursuing you for 3 days. I'm taking 3 off both of these die results. This method should be used with moderation, but allows the GM to influence events with context while retaining the magic of dice-driven play. In time, the hex roll and style of play it introduces will become a cornerstone of your campaign evolution. We come back to our dwarf NPC hankering for an ale. There we were, flying blind on a goblin skiff, bumbling about in the narrows like fools on a pleasure cruise. We saw a shape in the fog. I figured 'twas the Kraken itself come to swallow us up. Nope, it was just my cousin, Old Tom. As heroes traverse the North Holds, there are 3 types of areas they will encounter. Each has factors to consider as they plan their next journey. Large areas of terrain unified by a common theme or visual border. Regions are often sprawling across many hexes with unclear boundaries. In such cases, the GM is called upon to demarcate regions from each other at an appropriate time. Expect a matter of days to cross a region, if not weeks. Landmark locations. These locations are frequently contained in a single hex of an area. Town, castle, fort, natural feature, or structure will be a common landmark. Hex rolls here are far more confined to a specific spot on the map, and so may be rolled less during travel and more to see what happens upon arrival. Landmarks marked with white bubbles on the North Holds map are towns, abbeys, or capital cities. These are the best places to find rest and a resupply, but feature their own hidden dangers. Dungeons can be found anywhere in the Holds, of course, but the 3 largest are also noted as landmarks: Ruinmoor, Gulglak, and Runminir. These huge underground areas can be approached with a series of hex rolls and delved with their own detailed sections later in the book. Seas, lakes, rivers. These are large waterways too expansive or deep to swim, navigable only by boat. Waterways feature their own dangerous ecosystems, perilous shores, rapids, and other maritime hazards. Rest and safety can be found only if heroes possess a 2-mast ship or larger. Waterways are deceptively deadly. Freezing water can kill, rapids can destroy a boat, powerful currents can ruin travel plans. Use caution. Roll to taste. Remember, when traveling or discovering, make hex rolls when it feels right for your table. The GM may also opt to use hex rolls during session preparation to get ideas going. Keep the map of the Holds handy and dive in. Your table, your way. So it gets into a series of charts here. Don't look! Don't look! What are you doing looking at the Copper Peaks? You want to spoil this for yourself? Shame, shame, everyone. The mountains west of Galanor are rich with iron and copper ore, giving the stone a unique color. These pine-forested hills are home to lowland dwarves, stout folk with little love for the red-bearded berserkers of Uller's Teeth. For decades, the throne at Harnmoor has demanded these minor lords bend the knee, but the copper dwarves remain defiant, risking all-out war. Oh, good gods, y'all, old and new. So, here are the hex rolls for the Copper Peaks location event. This is a way for you to generate terrain, for you to generate things that happen along the way. I'm fast forwarding through here not because it's uninteresting, but because I don't want to spoil what can happen and more in those areas. And lastly, let's cover the enemy. Dun dun dun. We've talked about combat, how you don't roll to hit. We've talked about how damage is dealt in the attrition system. Let's take a look at some enemies. What would a goblin look like in this world? Well, clearly, like this. Duh. This is a grim, dark setting, and if this ain't a goth goblin, I don't know what is. And so if your goblins don't look like this in your grim, dark world, are you even playing tabletop role-playing games? Huh. Despite all the efforts and hopes of goodly folk across the Northholds, evil yet lurks in the shadows below the earth, in the hearts of the malevolent, wrathful, or bloodthirsty. Much of the peril that will define our heroes arises in confronting and struggling to defeat these evil forces and their legions. Some are monsters, inhuman deformities, titanic destroyers, tragedies of poison nature or dark magic. Others are those enthralled by ambitious lords, those driven to desperate acts, or those simply numb to the violence of their own deeds. Again, all of these our heroes must strive. They are the enemy. Not all enemies are evil. What is evil after all? RPG players are famously inquisitive about the motivation of those they seek to destroy. In the Northholds, you have a few key reasons these foes are more than simple pests. Tyrants, predators, hatred, the influence of Kalagos. Enemies are not as detailed as heroes. Here's the shorthand for their details. You'll be checking these as GM during play. Enemies have 5 stats: hit points, attack, defense, phase, and tactics. Hit point, a simple pool of hit points. At 0 hit points, the foe is killed. Attack, enemies do not roll their attacks. Rather, players defend with their own rolls. The attack stat is a penalty to a player defense roll. Defense, enemies have defenses to resist attack. Defense is subtracted from a hero damage roll. Some attacks degrade defense, such as the degrading armor. Phase, enemies take actions in one or more of the 5 phases in a round, up to 3 phases maximum per round. Tactics, when their phase comes up, monsters do 1 to 3 actions called tactics. As GM, roll a d6 to select a tactic. Displacement, dash, movement, target change or regroup, common attack or area of effect attack that hit all or near all foes. A tactic will also include what type of attrition it will inflict. Basic, when hit, victim chooses anyone's skill or equipment inventory to mark off. Equipment is only damaged. Flesh, when hit, victim rolls d10, marks off the indicated skill. Equipment, when hit, randomly select and cross off one equipment. Equipment is only damaged, not destroyed. Destroy, when hit, cross off one randomly selected skill and destroy one randomly selected piece of equipment. Brutal, when hit, victim marks off 1d6 combined skill and equipment inventory, randomly selected. Move to engage. Enemies need not be bound to tactics rolls at all times. They may just move to engage, getting in attack position or range before rolling tactics. Enemies tend to use move to engage to reach their most recent or most severe attacker. Here listed are the most common enemies our heroes will face. These lists are, of course, far from exhaustive. For custom creatures beyond these lists, use the guidelines on 284. So you have something from a dragon, a Durgan, oh my goodness, to a goblin, to a gigante. Enemies are listed with the following information blocks. So there we go. So you know what? Let's take a look at the humble goblin, shall we? And by the way, you see monsters and beasts, intelligent foes. These are descriptive themselves, perhaps in how you'd pilot them. And 270. I guess it's a little bit beyond that. Dragon Elder, Frogkin, Horror, EFGH. There we go, Goblin. Small, rat-like, mischievous beings with green skin. 2 hit points, attack 0, defense 1, phase 2, tactics 1. Tactic 1, run and hide. Unless restrained, goblins will scurry and vanish. They use hidey holes wisely, switching to bow and arrow. Tactic 2 through 5, a ragged little sword, basic attrition. Tactic 6, rickety gadgets. The goblin reveals some clumsy creation of wood and wire, flipping a lever. Darts or spinning blades fly out, inflicting basic attrition to all foes, but with a -3 attack. Goblins are an overabundant species of small humanoid who thrive on destruction, chouse, fire, and patronage to evil masters. They delight in mayhem, improvising weapons and traps for fun, as much as purpose. They are also, however, not that smart. Here you go. Now, can you modify a goblin? Now, there are rules for it, but if you look at this, do you think you can easily modify this goblin? Absolutely. Absolutely. Do you remember what the stats do? All the 5 different stats? What about a horror? An amorphous masses of mouths, eyes, and tentacles. 25 hit points, more than 2. Attack 5, defense 1, phase 2 and 4, tactics 1. Acid bite, many mouths, many more teeth. They eat everything, destroy attrition. Tactic 6, a chouse of tentacles. Although that sounds like a myth from classic Greek. Chouse of tentacles. The horror sucks its mass inward, then explodes out in all directions with flapping, gooey pseudopods. All near foes are grappled unless rolling evade, unable to act until escaping with a muscle roll or the help of an ally. If the horror's phase comes up, all grappled foes suffer basic attrition with no roll in the searing, crushing squeeze. And here's some, some fluff about it that you can adapt if you will. Now you'll notice we don't see anything like a challenge rating. Does this mean that a party of, there's no levels, but for clarities, many of us have met and played Dungeons and Dragons or talked about in the workshop. Does this mean that a group of level 1 characters can take on a horror? Oh, perhaps, pardon the hiccup, perhaps. Though if you take a look, they definitely will be going through people's gear. Beginners are going to lose out on their starting gear pretty handedly, especially with that attack 5. So this is something to perhaps feel out. Knights, Houndmasters, Myconids. Hit points, D4 times 10. Ah, very interesting. And extra notes on them too. Anyway, I'm not going to reveal everything that's here. But let's go to... Herbalist Guide. Dip-a-dip-a-doo. Tables and treasure. All right, well, no spoilers here. But you can see here that other things are worth various hero points. Remember, you use your hero points to buy gear and skills, which are kind of your hit points. So you don't measure things. You don't measure things in, this suit of armor is 1,000 gold pieces. Well, who can hope to start with that? Anyway, I do greatly enjoy tables and notes like this. Rare things, magical things. Let's scroll through. I don't want to spoil anything. Looks like there's a little bit more fluff and story here. Rules cheat sheet in the back. Excellent. Thank you. These are awesome to print out and to keep in front of you, but also to give to your players. Excellent. 342. 343. Oh, my heart. Thank you. All right. Well, there we go. Runehammer.online. There are rules for adjusting monsters. Let's scroll up real quick. Sure, I could find it. Enemy modifications. 286 and 287. That was the Herbalist Guide. Oh, I went too far. Everyone. Here we go. All right, let's get to the mechanical stuff. You'll see the tactics terms below all over the monster entries in the book. Mix and match to create your custom foes in no time, or use a D12 for a random property. There you go. Sometimes you might just have to run away. Not that you can't, purposely craft something specifically for your party. Let's go up a little bit higher though than just that. Yeti folk. Okay, so this gets into when creating and statting enemies can be cumbersome no matter how streamlined your rules may be. Try these tricks to help. Use 3 categories to rapidly set hit points on created enemies. 5, 25, or 50 hit points. These simple amounts can be used for a great many foes and give players a sense of mass or size driving hit points. Roll a d10 for attack or simply assign a value of 0. Most enemies have 1d6 defense. Add d6s to escalate tough, naturally armored, scaly, or steel-clad foes. Generally choose one of your created enemy. Basic, flesh, these were the types of damage that you can describe in all different ways. No matter what an enemy's attrition style may be, hitting a hero who has no inventory left is a lethal blow. A hero so hit will die on the next phase 5 unless healed for 1 or more skill inventory. Tactics classics. To simplify the tactics roll of an enemy, use these 3 classics, all with the same attrition style. As the enemy gains personality, these can be made more flavorful and vary. With the brief enemy lists included here, the GM will quickly come upon a need for a custom monster. As you create monsters, use the guidelines on page 284 to get started. Then spice things up with modifications. Follow the steps below, then use the D12 tables on 286 and 287. So roll a modification, jump to the next page, roll a D12, change your unique version of an enemy, and proceed. In time, you'll do this without even thinking. Roll an event. Also on the next page, spread, roll a D12 to add a second mode to your unique enemy. This will give any battle with the foe a two-part feeling that will challenge players or make the enemy feel like a leader, alpha, or ancient variant. Give it a name. Always give a creepy, weird, or scary name to modified enemies. Even keeping it simple like Ancient Blue Hag or Giant Cavern Crab sets it apart. For bonus points, name the modified enemy as an individual, spoken of in myth, feared by locals, or created in a wizard's tower. Give it loot. Unique, ancient, or alpha level foes should have 1 or 2 treasure items on them when slain. These can be bits that are harvested like eyeballs and teeth or dropped equipment. Use tables as needed to give players that tingle of finding goodies when victory is earned. The Custodian, don't get me started. With all that armor, the fire breathing, and the gigantic third arm, how can you even call it an orc? Damn thing has taken too many stout lives at the gates of Runnemere to escape my axe. To battle! And here's the modification tables. Have fun with it. Play it by ear, use strategy, throw in an extra one. This is not having any kind of pretense that challenge rating or similar exists. What are you going to do in those circumstances? Hopefully, your GM does have a sense of humor and or mercy, and you are meeting that with a sense of tactics and a sense of perhaps common sense that you're not playing Dungeons and Dragons anymore. And where your resources that you must keep intact are way more valuable than the cheap pool of hit points that you find in many other games. Remember, like I was telling Ketup, you don't have hit points here. Where in other games, 1 hit point is as good as 500 million billion hit points. This isn't an all or nothing game. You degrade over the course of combat. Your gear or your skills, and eventually you. So this does take a different approach. It's still a fun approach, and there are some thrilling things to encounter. And I look forward to run. You know what? We can gen some characters. We'll gen some characters, and in fact, for all of you out there, this was a quick. This was a free character generator. Remember, you all can go to it, make your own. You can randomize it, or if you want to input things from also the free player's guide, you can download the free player's guide as well to make a character. And why don't we make some characters tomorrow night? And on top of that, why don't we run them through some combat in order to see the system at work? It's all right? All right. Well then, it seems we're agreed.